Dominic Navarro adjusted his tie for the third time, checking his reflection in the restaurant window. 7 years of marriage deserved more than the typical anniversary dinner, which was why he'd reserved a table at Luminous, the most exclusive restaurant in the city. The lighting inside cast a warm glow across the white tablecloths where other couples leaned toward each other, sharing whispers and laughter. He checked his watch again, 8:27 p.m. Alyssa was nearly an hour late. The maitre d' approached with a sympathetic smile. "Another glass of wine while you wait, Mr. Navarro?" Dominic nodded, though his stomach had long since knotted with worry. He left 3 voicemails and sent 5 text messages to Alyssa. Each minute of silence amplified his unease. This wasn't like her at all. Their marriage hadn't always been smooth, what marriage was, but they'd weathered every storm together. Since meeting at a charity gala 8 years ago, where Alyssa had boldly approached him and criticized his donation as performative philanthropy, they'd forged a partnership built on honesty and mutual respect. Her environmental law practice and his architecture firm specializing in sustainable design made them a power couple in certain circles. But at home, they were simply Dominic and Alyssa, 2 people who'd found their match. "She's not coming, is she?" Dominic murmured to himself as the clock hit 9 p.m. He sat alone at their anniversary table while other couples laughed and celebrated around him. His wife never showed up. No calls, no texts, not even a single excuse. The bottle of Chateau Margaux he'd special ordered remained unopened, and the gift box containing the vintage compass he'd tracked down, a nod to their first date hiking the mountain trails, felt heavy in his pocket. The waiter approached again, this time with the bill. Dominic reached for his wallet, the sting of embarrassment mixing with growing concern. Something was wrong. Alyssa would never just disappear, not without a reason. But just as he was about to pay the bill, someone slipped him an envelope, and everything fell apart after that. The envelope arrived via a server he hadn't seen before, a young woman with eyes that darted nervously around the room. "A man outside asked me to give you this," she said quickly before hurrying away. Inside was a plain white card with a handwritten message. "Your wife isn't missing. She's running. Ask yourself why." Beneath it was a key to a storage unit and a photograph that made Dominic's blood run cold. The image showed Alyssa entering a motel room with a tall man whose face was just outside the frame. The timestamp showed yesterday afternoon. Dominic's hand trembled as he placed cash on the table and walked out, still clutching the envelope. The night air hit his face, but he barely felt it. His phone rang. Nolan, his business partner and oldest friend. "Dom, you need to get to the office right now." Nolan's voice was tight with panic. "The feds just walked in with a warrant. They're saying Alyssa accessed confidential building plans and sold them to developers with ties to organized crime. They're seizing our files and computers." Dominic felt the sidewalk tilt beneath him. "That's impossible," he whispered. But even as the words left his mouth, he remembered the late nights Alyssa had spent at his office over the past few months, claiming she was working on a surprise environmental initiative for the anniversary of his firm. "The feds think you're involved," Nolan continued. "They're looking for you." Dominic hung up and stared at the key in his palm. Whatever was in that storage unit might be his only chance to understand what was happening, and why the woman he trusted most in the world would betray him so completely. The storage facility was on the outskirts of town, a sprawling complex of identical metal doors. Unit 247 was at the far end, away from the security cameras. Dominic's hand shook as he fitted the key into the lock. Inside, he found 3 plastic bins, a laptop, and a prepaid phone. The first bin contained cash, a lot of it. The second held various ID cards with Alyssa's photo, but different names. The third contained a detailed dossier about him, his habits, his schedule, his vulnerabilities, even psychological assessments. It was like reading about himself through the eyes of a predator. The prepaid phone buzzed as he held it. A text message. "Storage wasn't meant for you. She messed up. You're in danger. Meet at Phoenix Diner." Midnight. Dominic felt sick. 7 years of marriage, and he realized he didn't know his wife at all. At the diner, a woman with copper-red hair sat alone in a corner booth. She introduced herself as Brooke Winters. "I worked with Alyssa," she said without preamble. Not at her law firm, at her other job. Which is what exactly? Dominic demanded. We extract information from high-value targets. Corporate espionage, but legitimate, government-sanctioned. She leaned forward. Alyssa was recruited 5 years into your marriage. She was supposed to use your connections to access classified architectural plans for government buildings. National security stuff. That's insane, Dominic hissed. Alyssa wouldn't. They have leverage on her, Brooke interrupted. Her brother, Xavier. Dominic stared. Alyssa doesn't have a brother. The Alyssa Lawson you married doesn't, Brooke agreed. But Alyssa Mercer does. She was given a new identity before she met you. Her brother was involved in some bad things, and to protect him, she agreed to occasional assignments. This was supposed to be her last job, so our entire marriage was a cover. The pain in Dominic's voice was raw. No, Brooke said firmly. That wasn't the plan. She was supposed to meet you, date briefly, extract information, and move on. But she fell in love with you, genuinely. That's why our handler, Silas Preston, is now trying to eliminate both of you. She refused this last assignment. The feds in my office, not federal agents. Silas's team, using fake credentials. They're searching for something Alyssa took, evidence against Silas. He's gone rogue, selling information to the highest bidder. Alyssa discovered this and planned to expose him. Where is she now? In hiding. She missed her dinner because Silas's men were following her. She couldn't risk leading them to you. Brooke slid a burner phone across the table. She'll contact you on this. But first, you need to find what she hid in your office. It's the only leverage we have against Silas. As they spoke, Dominic noticed a man at the counter watching them too intently. He mentioned it to Brooke, whose eyes widened. We need to leave. Now. They've barely made it to the parking lot before gunshots shattered the diner's windows. Dominic pulled Brooke behind a dumpster as more shots rang out. You know how to use this? She pressed a handgun into his palm. Dominic thought of the 3 years he'd spent in the Marines before starting his architecture firm. Information that was mysteriously absent from the dossier in the storage unit. Yeah, he said grimly. I know how to use it. The shootout was brief but intense. Dominic managed to hit one of their pursuers in the leg, buying them enough time to escape in Brooke's car. Where are we going? He asked as they sped away. Somewhere Silas won't look, Brooke replied. Your weekend cabin, the one you never mentioned to Alyssa. Dominic stared at her. What do you know about that? Because I've been watching you too, she said, her expression unreadable. The question is, why didn't you ever tell your wife about it? The cabin, a small property Dominic had inherited from his uncle, was his private retreat. A place he went when he needed space from his marriage. A place where he'd contemplated, more than once, whether the growing distance between him and Alyssa meant they were drifting apart. It was there, as dawn broke over the mountains, that the burner phone finally rang. Dom. Alyssa's voice was thin with fear. I'm so sorry. I can explain everything. You've been lying to me for years, he said, his voice hollow. Was any of it real? All of it, she whispered. Every moment with you is real. That's why I couldn't go through with it. That's why I'm trying to fix this. By disappearing? By letting me think you were cheating. I needed you angry rather than worried, she explained. Angry people are cautious. Worried people take risks. I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me. Too late, he said bitterly. Silas's men are already after me. There was a sharp intake of breath. You know about Silas? Brooke told me everything. A long silence followed. Dominic, Alyssa finally said, her voice changing. There is no Brooke in my organization. Dominic turned slowly to find Brooke standing in the doorway, gun raised. Sorry about this, Dom, she said with genuine regret. But Silas needs what Alyssa hid, and you're going to help us find it. Dominic assessed his options with the cold clarity that had once made him an excellent Marine. Brooke, or whatever her real name was, stood blocking the only exit, weapon trained on his chest. You played the concerned ally well, he said, shifting subtly to keep the kitchen island between them. But you slipped up about the cabin. Only 2 people knew about this place, me and Leo. Leo Benson, his former architectural mentor, had helped Dominic renovate the cabin years ago, before health issues forced him into retirement. Or so Dominic had believed. Leo was easy to turn. Brooke shrugged. Amazing what people will do when their cancer treatments aren't covered by insurance. Now, where's the flash drive Alyssa hid in your office? I don't know what you're talking about, Dominic said truthfully. Your wife stole evidence that would destroy Silas. Names, dates, transactions, everything. We know she planted it somewhere in your office building. Dominic thought about the project Alyssa had claimed to be working on. And if I help you find it, then maybe Silas lets you live. No promises about Alyssa, though. The burner phone in Dominic's hand buzzed with a text. Stall her. Help coming. Dominic needed time. How did Silas recruit Alyssa in the first place? Brooke gave a thin smile. Her brother was caught selling military secrets. Silas offered him immunity if Alyssa joined our team. She was brilliant, one of our best. Until she met you. And now Silas has gone rogue. Selling information himself? The hypocrisy isn't lost on me, Brooke admitted. But loyalty has its rewards. Now stop stalling. Dominic heard it before Brooke did, the faint crunch of tires on gravel outside. Her eyes flickered toward the window, and he seized the moment. In one fluid motion, he flipped the heavy wooden table between them, ducked behind it as her gun discharged, and came up with a cast iron pan from the stove. Brooke was fast, but Dominic had surprise on his side. The pan connected with her wrist, sending the gun skittering across the floor. She recovered quickly, dropping into a fighting stance that confirmed she was no ordinary operative. The fight was vicious and brief. Brooke landed several hard blows, but Dominic's larger frame and military training gave him the edge. He finally managed to subdue her just as the cabin door burst open. A man Dominic had never seen before stood there, weapon drawn. Federal Marshal Devin Rhodes, he announced. You must be the husband. 30 minutes later, Dominic sat across from his wife for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. Alyssa looked different somehow, harder around the edges, her eyes constantly scanning the safe house where the marshals had brought them. I was born Alyssa Mercer, she began without preamble. My brother Xavier was brilliant but troubled. He got involved with the wrong people, and when he was caught, Silas Preston approached me with a deal. Work for his special division of intelligence gathering, and Xavier would be protected. So you became Alyssa Lawson. She nodded. I was assigned to gather information from various targets. Then I met you, and everything changed. I broke protocol. I fell in love. I told Silas I was done after we married. But he pulled you back in, Dominic guessed. 3 years ago. Small assignments at first. Then he wanted access to your firm's government contracts. When I refused, he threatened to frame Xavier for a crime that would put him away for life. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Dom. I thought I could handle it without involving you. Until you discovered Silas was the real traitor. Yes, I found evidence he was selling classified information to foreign interests. I copied everything and hid it where he'd never look. Where? Dominic asked. Alyssa gave him a sad smile. In the one place in your office you never let anyone touch. The model of our first building together. The architectural model displayed prominently in Dominic's office was a miniature replica of the sustainable community center that had launched his firm's reputation. It was also the project where he'd first fallen in love with Alyssa, who had consulted on the environmental impact. Marshal Rhodes entered the room. Ms. Mercer, we need to go over your statement again. It's Mrs. Navarro, Dominic corrected firmly. Rhodes nodded. Of course. Mrs. Navarro, we need your help coordinating the sting operation. Our team is in position at your husband's firm, but we need to be certain about the location of the evidence. I can take you to it, Dominic offered. But first, I want assurances about our safety afterward. Rhodes outlined their plan. Once Silas was apprehended and his network dismantled, Dominic and Alyssa would be offered new identities and relocated. And if we refuse, Dominic asked, then you'd be on your own against whatever remains of Silas's organization, Rhodes said bluntly. Dominic looked at his wife, the woman he'd thought he knew completely, who turned out to be both less and more than he'd imagined. I think we can handle ourselves. The operation at Navarro Sustainable Design went smoothly until it didn't. Dominic led federal agents to his office, where he carefully opened the base of the architectural model to reveal the hidden flash drive. As he handed it over, Gunfire erupted from the lobby. Silas, Alyssa breathed, her face pale. What followed was chaos. Silas Preston, a silver-haired man with cold eyes who looked nothing like the monster Dominic had imagined, had come with a team of mercenaries. 3 agents went down in the initial assault. Dominic and Alyssa were separated in the confusion. He fought his way through the building he designed, using his intimate knowledge of its layout to evade Silas's men. He found Alyssa cornered in the conference room, exchanging gunfire with 2 attackers. Working together with the precision of people who'd known each other for years, which, Dominic realized, they had, despite all the secrets, they managed to neutralize the immediate threat. Silas went to the roof. Alyssa said, breathing hard, "He's got a helicopter coming." Dominic thought of the building's unique design, specifically the solar panel array he'd installed on the east side of the roof, accessible only through maintenance tunnels. "I know another way up," he said. They emerged onto the rooftop just as Silas was preparing to board the arriving helicopter. He turned, unsurprised to see them. "You could have had a comfortable life, Alyssa," he called over the roar of the rotors. "All you had to do was play your part." "By betraying my country," she shouted back. "By betraying my husband." "We all betray someone eventually," Silas replied with a shrug. "It's the nature of our work." "Not all of us," Dominic said, stepping forward. With deliberate movements, he removed a small device from his pocket, the vintage compass he'd planned to give Alyssa for their anniversary. "What is that?" Silas demanded, suddenly wary. "Insurance," Dominic answered. "I modified it when Brooke was busy monitoring my phone calls at the cabin. It's broadcasting our location to every federal agency within range." As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. Silas's face contorted with rage. He lunged for his weapon, but Alyssa was faster. Her shot hit him in the shoulder, spinning him away from the helicopter. The pilot, seeing the situation deteriorate, immediately lifted off, abandoning Silas on the rooftop. "It's over, Silas," Alyssa said, keeping her weapon trained on him as Rhodes and his team burst through the roof access door. Later, as dawn broke over the city, Dominic and Alyssa stood in the kitchen of their home, a place that suddenly felt both familiar and foreign. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "That depends," she replied. "The marshals will still offer witness protection. New names, new lives somewhere else." Dominic considered this. "And if we stay, then we face whatever comes next together. No more secrets." She hesitated. "If that's what you want." Dominic thought about the envelope that had shattered his world just days ago, the years of lies, the danger they'd faced. But he also thought about the woman who had fought beside him, who had chosen him over her handler, her mission, perhaps even her brother. "I want the truth," he said finally. "All of it, starting with your real name." She smiled softly. "It's Alyssa." "That part was always true." Dominic nodded, then reached into his pocket and placed the compass on the counter between them. "Then consider this a new beginning. Whatever direction we choose together." Alyssa picked up the compass, her fingers tracing the intricate engravings. "Together," she agreed. And for the first time in years, neither of them was lying.